Hey everyone, we're live right now. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
I'm about to start dancing. Hello, can you hear me now? I was about to start dancing like some Teddy Riley shit. I was like, you can't hear me? Hey, my name's Messiah Rhodes.
And I'm
You
Dr.
probably know
Evil
me from the
Genius.
internet. Yeah, Marty, who are you?
I'm Dr. Evil. That's Messiah Rhodes.
Yeah, and me and Marty, we go way back. Like, how far back did we go, yo?
Well, Dr. Evil and Messiah go back about 17 years. So,
Modern Warfare
you know,
times.
actually, this is before Modern Warfare. This was even before we started playing Medal of Honor Heroes. Remember that shit
Yeah.
on the
So
PSP?
Dr. Evil Genius, like, yo, like we go way back, we did media on the streets in New York City together. And I ended up doing like Vice stuff, Democracy Now. I have a new piece coming out in Al Jazeera in July. So I actually do kind of like journalist stuff, stuff like that. Get chased by cops down the street, about black stuff. But me and Marty, like, we go way back, oh, fuck. I'm sorry, this is like awful. Yeah, but Dr. Evil Genius, we go way back. I was actually in a group home in Queens. Like our black experiences, I don't know, way different. Even though I go in these kind of elite spaces and whatnot, writing stuff and shooting documentaries, I was homeless. I was group home, GED, all that stuff. So I have a different experience, whatnot. But like today, you probably just heard, the Dow Jones crashed, because you have money. If you care about it, Marty, you care about that shit,
No, I didn't even. Oh, like, yo, you just broke. I know we're supposed to be a news program, but you just broke news to me. Like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? Like,
Yo, while people were
what?
looting and going crazy in the streets, the stock market was going up. But as soon as they think about COVID-19, the stock market, crashes.
Right. That's
It was supposed
because
to be
the
some.
infection rates are rising.
Yeah, so for headlines today, we're going to do the virus coverage. We're going to talk about something real quick about the virus. It's like a month into opening. Like all these states are opening right now, all across the country, even though the pandemic, it's no vaccine, emergency rooms are still being filled up, yet all these states are opening up. Like what's going on with that, Marty? That's a recent figure. So like
Well,
right now,
the numbers were starting to go down. So in New York, they had like, very specific, criteria for them opening the state in stages. So once New York City, because I can only really think about New York City because I live in New York City, so that's what I care about, right?
yeah.
But there was, starting to open up the city because we had reached the 30% and below level of ICU beds that are being occupied. But I don't think anybody counted on, police officers stepping on people's necks and then causing, this massive outrage and this massive outpouring of outrage all across the country.
No,
And
but
then
before you even
everybody's in
get
the
to the
street.
protest, you have to realize people have
Yeah.
to know the peak started going up before the protest. People need to remember that when they start blaming protesters about the peak. Like the peak in Arizona, it was like May 26th, May 25th when their peak started going back up again. And now it's up to like 1,500 people a day. Is a crazy, like kind of stat like that in Arizona. Like even
Yeah.
with the reopening, like since we're supposed to have video, and I'm such a grandpa, like I printed shit out. Like you can see this stat right here. I'm ready all for technical difficulties. Like this is like the small businesses. So before the pandemic, these were all the small businesses that were opening, like 400,000. Then the pandemic happened, and then by the end of it, literally like 100,000 businesses just disappeared. Within 3 months, they don't know where they went. Probably out of business because they didn't get any assistance from the government. Who knows what's going on? Like already, and that's just what we know of. That's what. Who bother to tell these guys, these stat people, that the business is not around anymore? So who knows how devastating this first wave is?
But it's crazy because it's not like the government didn't try to help out small businesses. They did. But then when you have Well, when they did the CARES Act and they had the forgivable loan program for small businesses, you had the Los Angeles Lakers taking money from that program. You had
No, remember that.
large
I mean, the first
chain,
bailout, I think cruise ships and oil companies got the first like bailout.
Yeah, but when they did the CARES Act, that was supposed to be for small businesses. You had large businesses and entities owned by multi-billionaires taking money that was supposed to be earmarked for small businesses. So it's not like the government didn't
if
try.
I'm a billionaire,
But you had,
I want my money from the government just as much as like the ice cream man.
Yeah, because you're a small business, right? You needed to make sure you could pay your employees, right? Come on, man.
Like it's pretty much up to the states and up to the cities to give money to businesses, to individuals.
They trusted the banks with the money. Big fuck up right there. Like I know like somebody that has been following this because he is a small business owner, and what he was saying was that the fees that the banks are gonna make by distributing money that's not even theirs. It's the taxpayers' money. And they're getting paid fees as if they're using their own money. Like, what the like?
Right.
Oh my god!
But even doing in addition to that, because you're talking about these big businesses that got all this money from the CARE Act. Like, what issue that people been complaining about all the time has been hazard pay. It's been like you making me come to work with a deadly pandemic. You're not paying me extra for it. And people have been complaining about that. Even like essential workers were. I mean, let's drop the essential workers term. Let's just call people what they do: nurses, doctors, janitors. Like, they're not getting their hazard pay at all. Or any states, even the fancy states like Massachusetts and whatnot. So when you think about reopening, people may need to think about Florida and like Arizona, because raising Arizona and George Zimmerman. So but liberal states also have been having crazy stuff happening when it comes to rent stuff and like not helping people. So it's really scattered across the board, in political spectrum,
Yeah,
so,
like we have an issue here where we're getting ready for Evictionpocalypse, because it's crazy how people that don't need the help as much, they're getting like these kinds of assistance for people who are already at risk, who are renters, are not really getting much of any help past, well, you can't evict them right now. But then you're going to have this mass rush to evict as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. And the weird thing about that is, where are you going to get tenants to replace the people that you're in such a rush to get rid of? Where are you going to get people to replace them? Because we've got 30 million people in the country out of work. And we're not even thinking about the people who are underemployed during this time, or furloughed, people who technically still have jobs. You're not going to see that in the jobs report or in the unemployment reports on the news. We're not going to see the small business owners. We're not going to see, they're not talking about how much business they lose and how that translates to less income for the business owner, because the business owner is not going to collect unemployment. They're a business owner. So a lot of people are getting fucked over this. So if you're a landlord, why are you in such a rush to try to get rid of your tenants when you're not going to have people rushing to fill your unit, because everybody's fucked up with money?
But one thing I want to focus on is just like the case numbers, going back to like while this crisis is happening and not helping people, the case numbers are going up. Hopefully this video comes up. Like Arizona is a case. So here's the chart for the cases. Since the technical difficulties, you can't even fucking see it. But you see this chart right here. You see this pike right here. This is May 25th, May 26th. George Floyd was killed. When he was killed, like Memorial Day, just 4 days later. Yeah, it was already spiking before the protests. So when people try to blame it, boom. So, and I wanted to really show this video about Corral, about people going back to work and your job is supposed to have certain requirements across the states. Different states supposed to have requirements, masks, gloves, States.
I can't wait to see this fucking video.
People have wondered if buffet-style restaurants would ever make a comeback. Turns out Golden Corral is going to try. The restaurants are reopening with some big changes to their popular buffets. Fox 10's Stephanie Omo is live tonight in Mesa with a closer look. Steph?
That's right, Christina. After being closed for 2 months, Golden Corral is now open, and they've actually developed new service models to comply with state and local guidelines. Some patrons are thrilled to return to one of their favorite restaurants.
I didn't think I'd miss this place until they closed.
Food that you miss the most?
The onion rings.
So you miss the onion rings?
And the steaks.
The all-you-can-eat buffet restaurant implementing enhanced measures to ensure the safety of employees as well as the customers.
We are doing things for both sides. Our employees are wearing face masks. They're wearing gloves at all times. For the customers, we are giving them one-use gloves to use so that they don't have to touch utensils on the buffet.
There are also hand sanitizing stations throughout the restaurant and floor markers so people can continue to practice social distancing. All Golden Corral restaurants have the option to pick a serving style. General Manager Dwayne Weaver says he chose the buffet style.
We are just giving you one-use gloves and napkins in order to give yourself a barrier between the utensil and yourself.
Weaver tells me the capacity has also been cut in half from almost 500 to now 250 max.
We want everybody to feel safe. We are following all local and state health guidelines and actually exceeding them.
And I know many people at the station, they were asking about the chocolate fountain, right? JD, the assignment desk editor. Well, that option has been removed. Instead, they actually do have chocolate dip items already on display. Reporting live in Mesa tonight, I'm Stephanie Omo with Fox 10 News. Editor, well, that option has been removed. Instead, they actually do have chocolate dip items already on display. Reporting live in Mesa tonight, I'm Stephanie Omo with Fox 10 News. Editor, well...
Oh, people loving that video, yo. Like, imagine going to the OK Corral. Going to...
I think that's Golden Corral, right?
Golden Corral, yeah. No,
it's like,
because when I was in Virginia...
Like, people are going to, like, go in the saloon and start, like, fucking throwing each other over the bar. Like, that's the OK Corral. Like, at the bar.
I mean, because
like,
my mind is like, my mind is so like, why would I want a beast to go to Golden Corral? Like, I'm thinking of something else cooler in my mind. Like, yeah, I'll go to that. Not this shit. No, but like, people love their Salisbury steak. Though.
Yo, people are desperate to like stand on their lawn. Like now that I think about it, I'm thinking, yo, like people are going to be so fucking hyped to be outside their house. I think we're going to have like this epidemic of men naked under trench coats, like running throughout towns and cities all around the country.
Well, we got but I want to talk about, so when you talk about sports, I feel when you talk about COVID-19 in sports, you kind of also see kind of how people deal with it in an also different way. So like when it comes to sports right now, like Major League Baseball has a plan, NBA has a plan, NFL has a plan. No, the NFL doesn't have a plan, and not all. Soccer has a plan, but they all have enough money and resources to have a plan to deal with and open up. South Korea especially, they've already been playing soccer for a month now. So,
well, I mean, I don't really think is that simple. The sports leagues in the United States, it's not like they're just sitting on a huge bundle of cash. The problem that they're having is that a lot of the money that they get are from sports, sports contracts that they have, regional channels, national TV stuff. A lot of them haven't been able to honor those contracts. So we don't know what kind of money they're getting from that. Also, they're losing a lot of money at the gate where even when they do start to play games again, they're going to be playing in front of empty arenas. And so that's loss of ticket sales. That's loss of merchandise.
So I have a clip of baseball of I think they had in Taiwan, they already had baseball open long enough that
they were playing in front of stuffed animals.
Taiwan's Pro Baseball League plans to relax public health measures at its games starting Sunday. Spectators will no longer have to wear a face mask when they're in their seats. They'll also be able to get a bit cozier with their fellow fans. They'll be asked to leave just one seat vacant on each side instead of the current minimum of 2.
座位上，已经有实名制，已经有社交距离。
Real names are already registered to the seats, and there is already social distancing in place, so there is no need to wear face masks. The requirements from June 7th onward are based on social distance, not on the total amount of people in the ballpark.
Since May 15th, the CPBL has allowed up to 2,000 spectators at every ball game, but that limit has been reached only once over the last 18 games. Some have said that the face mask requirement could be what's keeping fans away from the games. Some have said that the face mask requirement could be what's keeping.
So this kind of proves your point. Like losing money, the seats are empty. People are not even showing up anyway, you know. So it kind of shows what's going to happen. Kind of proves your point.
You know, that's a really good. That's a really good fucking point because you know, even if you do say that, okay, we're going to open things up, people are not just going to, hey, I'm just going to run to the ballpark. No, they're going to be like, I might get the fucking Rona.
And the guy doing the press conference had a mask on, saying that you can go out with mask. Yeah,
I gotta say too, for myself personally, I've left my house maybe 6 times in the last 3+ months. So I know I don't want to wear any. In fact, I have not actually been inside of any kind of and established. I sit in my goddamn car because I'm not wearing a fucking mask because I don't fucking want to. So I don't go anywhere because, you know, I don't know. There might be.
You don't feel comfortable wearing a mask?
Yeah. It's not that I don't feel comfortable wearing a mask. There's a psychological thing about entering the next era in human history where shit, it just feels like shit will just never get back to normal. So,
you know, you have to wear a spacesuit to go to the laundry.
Yeah. Like, so, you know, I'm a personal trainer working in New York City, and I don't want to have to like wipe the air that I breathe every 5 seconds, you know, because people are scared of the virus. Like, so there's a part of me that I understand how important it is to take things seriously because, you know, the life that I save may not be my own. But I don't want to be walking on the street with a face covering and, staying, so many feet. I mean, I'm antisocial, but I'm still a human being at the same time, right? So there are some psychological barriers.
I was going to sign up. I signed up for the one-way ticket to Mars in 2014.
Oh,
so
yeah, I remember that
ready.
too.
Yeah.
I remember that
but
too,
we actually have our first guest here, Brandon West, and he's running for city council in New York City. And I really want him, hopefully he can pop up here and we start chatting with him. I really wanted to talk about like the kind of work he's been doing in the city. He's like a perfect like back and forth between on one subject everyone's been talking about, defund the police, and like also about like what do people do about COVID-19 when they go back to work, money situations, like what's happening here in the city. So Brandon West is pretty dope. So his district is like Park Slope, Golanus, all across Brooklyn, straight up Brooklyn. So, defund the police. I mean, how you feel about all the police going out of space? Because I love that shit.
Oh, yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of...
Brandon's here. Brandon, can you hear us?
There he goes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Brandon, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can't hear Brandon.
I can hear you.
See him, but I can't hear him.
What's up?
It would have been absolutely funny if Adam West would have...
Hopefully you can hear us too.
I'd have been like, fucking old ass Batman.
We're gonna stop this crime and dance a little bit. Boom! Yeah, whenever sound issues, I just do the telly route, just start dancing.
Oh, I start reading the chat. That's what I do.
Start reading the chat. What people say. Disband the police. I love that's way better.
Jacksima says.
But we're gonna. Hey, Brandon, can you hear us?
What?
Still can't hear us.
Yeah, I think he can hear us, but we can't hear him.
Can you hear you? Can you say, hey, Brandon, what's up?
Hey, I'm talking, but don't know if it's coming through.
Oh, there he goes. I can hear him.
Oh, that. Yes.
Yeah.
Brandon, how are you today?
Hey, I'm all right. I'm good. Glad to get the opportunity to talk, and this is working.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So this is Black Power Magic Hour. This is our first episode. We're here with Brandon West. He's running for New York City Council. Tell us about yourself. What's going on? What's your campaign going?
Hey, not much. So I'm running for City Council in District 39. This is pretty much west of Prospect Park, so it's central Brooklyn, but it kind of goes down. It's a really mismatch of communities, and this is 2021, so this is actually in the not this upcoming election cycle, but it's the following year. But I currently work right now at the Center for Popular Democracy, so I do like grass tops organizing. So I help other grassroots groups organize on democracy issues. But I've also done a lot of like organizing folk, Black and brown folk, and on issues and how to include them in society, but also our democracy, and then also just like getting by life as it is. And that's kind of fueled the stuff that I've been doing. I do a lot of anti-machine work in Brooklyn, and decided, there's an open race. I wanted to give it a shot. So right now, every campaign's like not doing anything because we're trying to survive in like multiple crises that are going on right now in New York. So I've just been spending my time trying to support people in the community who are struggling to get by. Even in the district that's predominantly white, there's still a lot of unseen communities there of color that are struggling in ways. And then more recently,
I remember the Park Slope High School stuff with the police in the high school, Park Slope High School, that happened around there.
Yeah, that happened a while back.
Hey, Brandon, can you do me a favor?
Yes.
Can you you said anti-machine, which made me think of Skynet. So can you just kind of tell our viewers a little bit about what anti-machine is? Because that's really interesting to me.
Sure. So it's like, our politics is like, every reason why everyone hates politicians, all that stuff is true. And it's true at a local level, probably more so than even in the national level, because people don't follow local politics. So you have political clubs, and this is like one party city. So the Democratic Party runs everything. And they have people who have political power wield that power. So they make sure they have their friends in all the tiny offices, like the dog catcher level size office, like everything. And they essentially try to leverage that in order to maintain that power structure. And it used to be down all by like race. It's still all politics is race related in New York City when it boils down to. But there's a Democratic Party in Brooklyn that is stuck in the bygone era. And it just had a new chair, but the old chair, Frank Sedio, is effectively, if you had like The Simpsons had a party boss character, like he like looks exactly like that giant round man who like doesn't use a phone, who like, if you want something you have to go to his club one day a week in order to get like favors from him. And this is like how transactional politics can still be.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's kind of just removing some of the gears of the machine in order to kind of just dismantle the way things go, because if we keep trying to seek change with the same processes, we're in a fucking hamster wheel.
Totally.
So getting right through the sign of the times. I just want to get right to the sign of the time because we're all thinking about it. Especially in New York City. Like, are you one of the city council members that are like for defunding the police?
Yeah, so I'm running to defund the police. I'm working on this collaborative effort with a couple other Black organizers. We did a defund the police party last Sunday on Williamsburg. We thought we were going to get 2,000 people, and we got like 10,000 people to show up. So it's huge. And that's been like just something that I got into because I've been organizing and got brought into this large space. There's like 40 of us, but this is like never have there been like not only like an international like uprising on this issue or issues in general around like race and like power, and essentially it's all really about power and who's resources and who's getting these things. But we're talking about defunding the police. That is some radical stuff right now, and it's resonating. And this is like, so I'm trying to like capitalize on this and try and communicate more people like exactly what that means, because people think lawlessness, they think people running around the streets with guns and everything. And it's tough because you have, like Central Brooklyn especially, you have a lot of Black communities and you have like Black political leaders, and they're the ones who are actually in the way of having this conversation of actually like how can we defund the police because a lot of their constituents were people who are like, it took us this long to get cops on our streets. Why do we want to defund the police? And they kind of see like, we want cameras around the buildings. Can
I interject on that? So, when you use the word radical, people get the vision of something that is unreasonable, that is so far out there that you can't even take them seriously. But when we talk about defunding the police, it is actually less radical than it sounds, because when I had a chance to think about
the numbers,
subject,
just talk the numbers.
Right.
Like, what are the numbers? Yeah.
Well, I just want to
like the budget.
Well, I do
want
to put this thought out. No, I wanted to put this thought out there. If I put myself in the shoes of a police officer, and they want to defund all the extra stuff that really should not come with policing, and then actually take those funds so that I could just focus on being a police officer and getting better at doing my core job instead of having to be a counselor and having to be a this and having to be a that. Right. Yeah. Like, I shouldn't have to write, tickets I shouldn't have to write parking tickets. I shouldn't have to, referee, all types of weird stuff. I should be the last call that is made when there's a potentially dangerous situation coming up. Take that money and put it into an entity where a specialist can handle that, because a specialist is going to handle it much better than somebody who's let's call it the six of all trades, because they're not even as good as a jack for what they do. You can't do everything well. You can probably do one or two things well. So if I'm looking at it from a reasonable standpoint, if you want to take some of this bullshit off my plate so I could just focus on doing my job, then I should be all for it. That's how I think of it.
But the thing is, still, we still have people say that, if defunding the police means that I walk down the block, people are fighting and shooting. Like, why do people think that we defund the police, like all of a sudden it's going to be like Escape from New York, like Purge? Yeah. Like, why do people just divert to that thinking? Brandon, when it comes to you arguing, in those spaces.
Yeah, because this is like, so there's a lot to explain. Like, this has been, this new normal is like a week old. So like we were still, there's like years of research and policy, but people don't know this kind of stuff, Like, people say you're going to cut the budget by $1 billion. The budget since our de Blasio has gone up $1 billion. So they would just be going back to pre-de Blasio levels. So the budget for the NYPD for next year is $6 billion. Back when de Blasio started his first term, it was around $5 billion. So going down $1 billion, which is like is just going to where we were. It's not going anywhere lower. So that is just like misconception number one.
Wow.
And beyond that,
so they got more money.
Yeah. So like the thing is, though, like the whole like Escape from New York thing is, like, people remember the 80s, and people remember sort of like the damage that Reagan and this whole, and Biden, has done to really our entire society. But
we're going to talk about Biden next with Tracy.
That's that. I'm glad I'm not in that conversation. But the real thing about it is that so defunding the police also means, yes, it means not making cops, in schools, not having them be social workers, and but it also means funding the institutions that we've been defunding for generations since post Reagan, and making sure that those things are working well. And if they're working well, then you have less crime, you have less reasons why people are going to be doing the things that have them come across the criminal justice system. And if you stop arresting people and putting them in prison for a $500 bail that they can't pay for something that is relatively trivial, you're going to have less need for that, keep that structure together. And so that's what defunding the police means.
Recidivism rate is so high, so people interact with the police so much, with the prison system, with the jail system, the police system. This is all this money is going towards that every year, every day, And
when you talk about recidivism, it's important to note that, when you talk about recidivism rates, it gives you the feeling that these people that go in there for a violent crime are being put back in prison because they created a violent crime. A lot of what you're seeing with this so-called recidivism are people who went in there, they paid their debt to society, and then they jaywalked, or, you know, they spit, you know, in a corner, or they, you know, they pissed hot on marijuana or something like that, or some of them just having a drink of alcohol inside their own homes. And they'd find these little itty bitty little things that you or I would never see the inside of a precinct for. And then they try to find ways to trap them, to keep them in the system. So those recidivism rates, the way that I see it, are fake as fuck, because it's almost like a string that you hold onto them, that you tie around their waist. And then whenever you feel like it, you yank them back. They don't even have to really do anything that is morally reprehensible on any level. And you can fuck their whole lives over, because we already know that, you know, there's a certain amount of money that is made with bodies being in the prisons. And if you don't have as many bodies in the prisons, then, you know, certain places don't get the profits.
You know, but that's why I wish had red glitter shoes and I can click them and all the cops would just disappear. So, you know, that's what I hope in the world, you know. But like, I really want to switch to like an ongoing issue, because these are two things. These are like, it's like rubbing your belly and patting your head at the same time. So people out on the streets while pandemic is happening.
I can't do it right now. Not on camera.
This is what it's been feeling like the past like couple of weeks. If I don't pat my head and rub my tummy, I'm gonna get shot. You know, that's what it feels like. But like, so you have people now. People are going back to work. What do you see? Like workers' protections they have going back to work. I don't know if you watched earlier the clip we showed about the Golden Corral, people getting steaks. Like, you know, you saw the protections that buffet had. You know, what you see going on out there?
Yeah. So like, first of all, you have this like huge section of the city who like never stopped going to work. Like they were like still needing to go to work for a lot of reasons, you know. So like you have that's already going on. But like really right now, you have a lot of more people who are going to be trying to get work and using the infrastructure like the subway and that sort of thing to get back to life. But there really aren't a lot of protections. There are protections, but really they're only as good as the information that you have. So the national protections, like if you work at like the biggest company, so like if you start like with the stuff federal government did, there's like if you work at like Walmart, there's like some benefits. You get like $200 for like a week if you have COVID. It's something it doesn't help at all. And then you go to like below that, and you have the state level protections, which if depending on the size of the organization, there's a certain amount of pay that you can get if you have symptoms of COVID, and then for the city, there's a paid sick leave policy that existed beforehand that is really just gives you time. Like it depends also on the size of the business, but for the most part, just gives you 40 hours if you have COVID, which is totally not enough to deal with, like, especially with incubation period for like a sick, relative. And those are like things that are in the books, but people don't know that. So if your manager doesn't know that, you don't know that. There's no enforcement either. Like there's not like there's people going around making sure that these rules are being protected, because all the enforcement people are like not working now, obviously, and won't be working probably in a long time. So you're really at the whim of you having information that you need, your business, the person who owns your business having the right information, and then like at the grace of God giving you all the protections you need. But like your business
Brandon,
isn't giving you masks.
In some ways, he's saying that the reopening process should be almost like a own educational thing on its own, like teaching people what to do, showing people what resources out there. Instead, we just walk out there and you figure it out. That's what kind of feels like right now, when it comes to like does your job have hazard pay? What if my mom is sick, and I still have to go to work? None of this has been resolved, I feel, So
I mean, No, I was just saying that, like, you're at the whim of sort of what exposure you're getting with the system and the state is struggling to do its job. And like all the mutual aid programs are way better at getting people help and resources than the government is. And so pretty much all the city agencies, like the city, folks in the field, getting people masks and trying to get people food, like the food they give you is like abysmal. They're sending everyone to the mutual aid, efforts, which are pretty much like anarchist, concepts that are like starting to do well just because we've underfunded it. So we never put government in a place to reconnect with as many people as it needs to. So we're trying to make government do what it's supposed to do but never was equipped to do because we stopped funding it a long time ago. So that's kind of like the reality of the landscape, is that we've kind of like, you have a lot of people who are poorly informed and don't have the resources and are struggling and are going to be going into this situation where it's more likely to get COVID, and they're not going to have the same amount of resources as anyone else might.
Yeah, that's why when you see a real Antifa super soldier, they're giving you bananas and eggs. That's when you know you met a real one. When it comes to mutual aid and like all that kind of stuff happening, it's pretty crazy. But what are people, so on a baseline in New York City, what are bosses obligated to do if you start your job right now in the office? Like what are any obligations on the books in New York City?
So there's OSHA guidelines. So they're required to follow the OSHA guidelines in terms of like how the space is supposed to be structured. So there's supposed to be, I think it's used to be 6 feet, but I think now it's like 5 feet. So if it's a restaurant, there needs to be like kind of what the clip of the Golden Corral showed, which is there's supposed to be distancing that's set up in the actual space, and then there's going to be a occupancy limit, and then that will change depending on how things go for the next few months. But they're required to follow the OSHA guidelines, and then they're also required to provide you, the lot won't provide you with protective gear for you to do your job. And beyond that, they're also
astronaut suit.
Yeah.
So like you did budget stuff in the past, and so like I just want to like just flip it and like so can you just talk about again? I just want to hear that story again about the police budget in NYPD, how it went from $5 billion to $6 billion. And why now? What is the call now for defund the police? What is the ask right now?
Sure. So yeah, I used to work in the mayor's office in the budget wing, and so really right now the city budget is $89 billion for the next year, and $6 billion of that belongs to the police department. And the reason why the budget has gone up is mainly just because it's a couple different things. One is capital projects, really expensive buildings, cool stuff. Like that stuff costs tens of millions of dollars, and it's very easy because they're talking to themselves. So they can make the case to the mayor, and when you have like an incredibly powerful police union, you can just say, they hold them ransom and so just say, we'll turn your back on you if you don't do what we ask you. And that has been the relationship with the police unions with the legislators. So it's capital project. It's the incoming cadet class. So when you hire someone, you start off like 40 some odd thousand, but it goes up to six figures relatively quickly. And then, all the pension. Yeah, when you first start, it's only around 40K, but it goes to six figures over a couple of years.
40K? You get a gun and walk the streets with $40,000?
So why they don't live in New York City? Because they can't, So, but the thing is that in order to pay that, you're paying double the salary on just their pension and other overhead.
Wow.
And so then you have that, and then they have overtime, which is usually around half or more of their current salary. So that's on top of So you have people out beating people up, getting overtime pay, which costs a lot. So there's a lot of overhead costs to increasing the police force. So you have that coupled with facial recognition technology they're putting in all the parks, and just tons of expensive stuff. The police department actually has a CIA cell in Europe. So there's this equivalent of the CIA, which is just NYPD run, which is a hidden part of the budget. So you don't get to see what they're spending on this project, where they're essentially doubling what the FBI, terrorism, but it could be anything. We don't know what it is.
It's no wonder Bloomberg said this is his private army. He probably saw that in the paper. He's like, yeah, this is my army right here.
This is the beginning of the Minority Report.
Yeah.
So that's sort of why the budget has kind of become what it is. But yeah, the a lot of campaigners are saying $1 billion in 1 year, and depending on what other groups are saying, different versions of what do we invest that funding into and support, social net programs. And that's sort of what the effort is. And there's a lot where the real core part of it is abolition. We need to create the infrastructure for having an alternative like way of dealing with these issues, and we think it's like possible in the long term. So it's not just like, yeah, let's cut some money, but it's also like, let's create an alternative to this that is not policing, that is like, you know, like builds in the things that our people need to thrive. So that's kind of like, let's feed them to thrive is the like phrasing.
Because you know that a lot of the detractors, when you talk about these kinds of subjects, the way that people have been talking about them, the detractors are going to instantly point to, oh, they just want to get rid of the police and be lawless and blah, blah, blah. No, there is actually a process for transference of responsibilities for these vital services that still need to be serviced, but they just don't need to be serviced by somebody with a service weapon. You don't need somebody with a gun on their hip to do parts of what they're currently doing.
Because right now, at the moment, I'd rather have Scooby-Doo mysteries show up at my house than NYPD if I call 911. You know, like, is this how I feel when it comes to, like, my trust for the NYPD. But I understand, like, it's a process of, like, you know, we have to do one step at a time and, like, break these institutions down. You know, these institutions were started in the most toxic way possible. It's like, you know, like slave patrols, you know, how that you can't from there, you know. So the idea that we have to start from somewhere, you know.
I do want to address someone, Rossmann Group in the chat. What he's looking for from you, Brandon, is to be a little bit more specific, because some of of course, things are still in the architectural phase, in the framing phase of getting ready to implement these changes. But, you know, he says an alternative to this, in quotations, that is not policing. Can this be defined? I'm new to these proposals. I don't know what that means. So for somebody who might be apprehensive about getting on board with an idea like this, can you give any sort of specifics to help somebody that really can't see the value of it, see the value of it? You know, give an example.
You get free martial arts classes.
So the best example.
Sorry, go ahead. Go Brandon. Yeah, sorry.
It's all good. The best example is police in schools. So that is considered, you know, like starting point, because that's been a thing that people have been working on for a long time. Like, if we're dealing with like violent crime, like violent activity, like that, like for the amount of police that are in schools, you know, in fact, that they get paid more than the teachers, like there's a disproportionate like need to have like police and dealing with something where violent crime may occur, but does not occur at the rate where you need multiple police officers in every school all over the place dealing with small, you know, issues that are maybe more equipped for a social worker.
If police were in school when I was a kid, I would probably be in jail a long time ago, to be honest. So.
Yeah,
but it's just how. Yeah.
That is actually a visual representation of what people are talking about when they say the school to prison pipeline. When you actually have law enforcement officers that are already there, it's almost like they're telling you, "We're ready to catch you. Like as soon as you fall, we're ready to catch you and scoop you into the system." For nothing else, it's a bad look.
Right. So you have police in schools, but like when you have a license for like you know, a food cart, like who monitors that system? The NYPD. No reason why a guy with a gun needs to be monitoring, you know, licensing for food carts. So like that is another thing that could be taken away. When you have like you know, essentially like meters, like streetcar, like not just traffic, but more just like people are parked on the street. You have like a lot of different institutions within the city that the NYPD covers, which they don't necessarily always feel they need to, but have picked up, which then inflates sort of the police budget. So this is a vision where you have social workers in schools dealing with most of those instances. You have, when you call through when there's a person with a mental health issue on the block, you don't send a cop, you send someone who can deal with that situation better. You have, you know, other entities dealing with like small things like fines and infractions, and you start to whittle at how overreaching the NYPD is in everyday people's lives. And then when you have situations like in the summer, like everyone's out in the summer, people getting drinks, you know, people obviously carrying weapons because they're dealing drugs and they feel like they need to be protected, you know, like there is conflict, but the conflict can be resolved in ways, and other cities have done this without having armed officers dealing with every single conflict that happens in the community. So like, you're not going to ask a cop, because if you bring a cop into, an altercation that happens at a party on the summer, like it's going to escalate, and people are going to get arrested, and that's how it's going to be dealt with. But if there was some alternative body that could come de-escalate situations who are from there, like that is going to maybe more likely to lead to less aggressive outcomes. So the vision is like the community is doing the work in ways that is best effective for the community, rather than bringing this outside community, because all these officers are not from here, dealing with these situations when they're only trained to escalate and protect themselves and use their weapon whenever they need to, because they're afraid of getting hurt. So that, I think, is like kind of envisioning a little bit of what that would look like in practice.
Great. Brandon, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And what links can people go to right now that you can share right now, so people can follow your campaign? So
Sure. So my website is westforcouncil.com. That has information just sort of about what my campaign is and what I'm doing, and help donate. My Twitter is @BTWest. And really that just shows you like sort of what activity is. And if you sign up, you'll get emails about, the work that I'm trying to do, and, the work that I'm doing. I'm actually doing an explainer on how to defund the police budget tomorrow at 6 p.m. It's like,
you definitely need to share that link. Hopefully you can share that link and people can go to that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Brandon. We're gonna go to our next segment right now, which is we're gonna have different reoccurring segments. This one is called Bad Cops, Bad Cops. So it's pretty cool. It's talking about police misconduct, police victory against police brutality, police, all kind of stuff. Bad Cops is kind of a segment. Then we have like global news sometimes we have science stuff, sometimes we have fitness and mind stuff. So we're going to talk about a broad range of stuff throughout the show. So this next segment is called Bad Cops.
1, 2, 3. Bad cops, bad cops. Bad cops, bad cops. Bad cops, bad cops. Bad cops, bad cops.
Yes, so many cops are on the tick. What do you expect when they use tear gas and tanks? Whether in a car or on a horse, cops don't mind using excessive force.
Bad cops, bad cops.
What you gonna do?
Bad cops, bad cops.
What you gonna do?
Bad cops, bad cops.
What you gonna do?
Bad cops, bad cops.
This is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Cops, bad cops. Bad cops, bad cops. Bad cops, bad cops.
Hey Tracy, what's up?
Cops, bad
Hi, I think I have a little lag maybe, but I can hear you.
Oh yeah, hey Tracy, how are you?
I'm okay.
I'm sorry.
How are you?
I'm still messed up over that clip. I'm sorry. That clip is ridiculous. Oh my God.
Did you check out with a chat with Brandon real quick? You took out a chat?
I did. I heard it. Brandon and I used to work together.
Yeah. CPU, Center for Popular Democracy.
Right. That's where I used to work.
Yeah. Whoa. Can you hear that? Is that me?
Yeah. I can. Yeah. I think so.
Okay. All right. So where are you right now, and what type of work are you doing, Tracy?
Well, I'm currently in Oakland. And I work at the Action Center for Race in the Economy Acre. And I run our police, I work on our police and Amazon accountability work, really on building out campaigns for that work. So essentially I work with a bunch of really smart people who do a lot of research. It's a little intimidating actually, because I'm like, oh, y'all said all that? And then I come in and I try to make it something that's usable for movement folks. Don't ask me beyond that because I'm about 3 weeks into that job. So it was a hell of a time to start, 3 weeks ago.
Wait, right now? 3 weeks is the job right now at this moment? With,
I'm 3 weeks into that job, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so where are you right now? Are you in the West Coast, East Coast?
I'm in Oakland, so I live in Oakland.
Oakland? Yeah.
And due to COVID, I have not been anywhere for months, so...
Tracy, I gotta ask you about something, because we have somebody in our chat that are bringing in deflective talking points that we normally see from people who are looking to take away from the discussion that is at hand. So we have someone here, Ogre Warlock. He has, his points are that, there are more good police than bad police. I don't think anybody really disagrees with that. I think that there are levels to that, but
I definitely disagree.
I think, this says the footage of cops during 9/11 trumps all of that. I do believe he's referring to September 11th, 2001. That is almost exactly 19 years ago. So I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. They said cops tackling people is still better than what happens in Chicago daily. So that's normally like a dog whistle that I hear when someone is hearing they're hearing something that they know makes sense, but they have to try to change the conversation to something that we're not talking about, that it's like this weird false equivalency. So one of the things that I like to remind people is that when there's a murder that happens in Chicago, Tyrone is going down. He's going to face consequences for what he's done. But the problem that we have here is that we have a power system that is leading us to believe that there's certain subsection of the population that operates above the law with impunity, and that sets a bad precedent for the constitutional rights of all Americans in the country.
Evie Genius, that goes to like, Tracy.
Go ahead, Messiah.
Yeah, I want Tracy to. Yeah, we'll get to that.
So I think
I just want to ask about my mic real quick. That's all.
Okay. You sound good. It's a really interesting thing for me because people say like defund the police doesn't mean defund the police. It absolutely does. It means take that money. We know what defund means. Words mean things. When people say defund Planned Parenthood, we know that means you taking away their money. So when we say defund the police, we're saying defund them, right? Like that's not up for debate, and it's not a difficult concept. It just becomes difficult when you talk about Black people having their own self-determination. And so when you talk about things like the violence in Chicago, or when you talk about whatever, you're missing the point that cops aren't even solving that. So like when you say like, what would happen if cops weren't in our community? What happens with them there? Police officers are not dropping crime. In 2017, police threw a temper tantrum in New York and said, we're not going to go out on the beat because whatever. And then what happened?
Oh, I remember that.
Crime dropped.
Yeah, the crime rate did drop. Yeah. They stopped stopping people for bullshit stuff, and they really only did their job when absolutely necessary, which is what we've been asking for since the beginning.
But I think that, so I don't believe police should exist. I'm not saying that it should happen tomorrow, but I am saying that that's the goal.
Yeah.
Right? Like that we should be living in a country, in a society where we are able to like meet our own needs. And part of the reason that we're not able to do that is because we give so much money to police departments. So you look at places like, for example, I'm live in Oakland, but I'm from Milwaukee. So I helped them run a campaign called Liberate MKE. I don't want to say too much credit. I supported. It was Liberate MKE, and so I supported it. There were amazing organizers on the ground, like Marquesa Tucker and Rick Banks, who were like really running it. And I came in and I was like, how can I be down with y'all and y'all leadership? And so they were saying we want to cut back the Milwaukee budget. So there's a group in Milwaukee called Block, which is Black Leaders Organizing Communities, and they go every day on doors in all over the city, on the Black side of the city, and say, what would it look like for your neighborhood to thrive? And people are taken back because usually when you knock on Black folks' doors, you want to vote. It's only about voting. And they're saying we're switching that paradigm. So they go and they say, what would it look like for your community to thrive?
Yeah, you're talking the real
and
stuff.
And then folks folks say things from all over the spectrum. So some folks are like, I want them to remove my snow because that's real in the Midwest. Or it's like, we want community garden space. We want kids to have something to do. We want bus passes. We want all of these things that would look like their neighborhood to thrive. And then they say, well, the reason we don't have some of that stuff is because we spend 47% of our budget on policing. And then people are taken back. And they say, what do you mean we spend? Yeah.
It was 47% of the police budget in Milwaukee. Wow.
47% of the city budget goes to policing. And that's just policing.
There is so
That's not
much more to
prison.
life than policing. There's so many things that
Right.
can go on in a city on a day-to-day basis in individuals' lives, but to give them 47% of the tax revenue
That's
when
crazy.
the vast majority of people are not going to come into contact with police on a day-to-day basis.
It just feels like New York
ridiculous.
City is just a police department. You know, it feels like your cities are the police department, and everything else is secondary. You know.
Right. I said that before. I was like, city budgets are just overfunded police departments with underfunded services as a treat. Like that's the way
Wow.
the city budgets end up working out. And so when people hear that, they're able to imagine safety beyond policing. So you say, what would it take to keep your neighborhood safe? And then people say, oh, if we had, and sometimes it's something as simple as lights on the street because their street lights are out. And sometimes it's actually, if everybody over here had a living wage job, we wouldn't have this crime, right? And so that's the world we're
It's
trying
more
to
of an
build.
economic thing than a racial thing.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, it all intertwines. It's like DNA, right? Like race
No, because
and
if you look
economy,
if you look at poor white communities, the crime rate is higher than in middle class and upper middle class communities. So the economics does have an effect on if you like. I'm going to use this example, right? At the beginning of the COVID-19 lockdown, they started to see about a week or 2 weeks in that the behavior of the rat population started to change because their main source of sustenance had been cut off. So the rat economy was disrupted. So they started doing more desperate things to survive. So it's not like, you know, we're not going to say, oh, that's rat on rat crime. No, this is what happens when you take a living being and then you take away their ability to comfortably get the resources that they need to carry on their lives. Then you start doing desperate things. Like they say, desperate times call for desperate measures. So likewise with human beings, if you take away the human being's ability to care for their most basic needs, food, shelter, sustenance, love, whatever, right? You take that away from them, they start acting, right? They don't act the same way. Their behavioral patterns are going to shift because now we've got this problem with scarcity. So when people believe that there is scarcity, I mean, and another great analogy would be the toilet paper gate of 2020. We saw footage of white people, since people want to make this a racial thing. We saw white people beating the shit out of each other over toilet paper. Imagine if there was a real issue like what black people have had to deal with for over 20 generations in this country, not 20 years, over 20 generations. We're talking about over 20 year periods. You keep people in these environments, and then you want them to act like there's no scarcity when our lives are full of extreme stress due to the expectation of scarcity. So I think it's something that needs to be talked about.
But Virginia, you just brought in about the generational thing, you know, about generational things that happen. Like black people have been dealing with this for a while. And one thing I really want to talk about that I feel affected me personally in my childhood is like the 94 crime bill. You know, my mother was incarcerated over 4 times during the period between the mid 90s. You know, I experienced that directly of like harder law enforcement for petty crimes, nonviolent offenses, you know. But one thing I don't know is like, you know, like right now the presidential is running and like, I don't want Trump in office. I don't want this man I don't want this man on this planet anymore. But at the same time, like it feels like Biden supported the crime bill. I read what's the story with Biden and policing? What's his history with policing, like policy that you've seen when it comes to affecting the black community?
I mean, so Joe Biden was never my first choice of president, never my last choice of president. I mean, he's not there on this issue. And with the crime bill, I think the way we talk about it is not is like it's this mass thing that like came in and just like locked people up with pen and paper. And what it really did was, of course, it gave money, and it took money that could have gone to services, because you'll hear people talk about it from the time, and they'll say there was all this crime in the street and all these Black people asked us to help them, and so therefore we had to do the crime bill because Black people asked for it. That's the narrative that is spun by Joe Biden, by Bill Clinton, by all the people who passed it at the time. The reality is community leaders were saying, yo, there's a lot going on over here. We need some help. And they were asking for services. They were asking for funds to actually do the things that help people thrive in communities. And we get into this like bag of being like, oh, we just need to survive it. And that's actually not what we want. We want people to be doing better.
What do you mean by
bad.
just to survive it?
We get into this idea of like, oh yeah, as long as I can survive school or I can survive my neighborhood, I can do this thing. It's like people deserve to thrive. You know, we bring in economics. People deserve to be able to go to work every day, and be paid a living wage, be able to take care of their families, take care of themselves, and then go on vacation if they want to. Like folks should not be struggling to pay bills, right? And so that happens. And so instead of like addressing that issue and addressing the struggle, they were like, we're gonna lock more people up.
Well, Tracy,
and so we're
you want to hear this? Tracy, you want to hear this story that I feel like supports exactly what you're saying that happened during the protests in New York City last week. There was a worker, Shaquem. I never heard the story. Like he was a janitor and he was like working the night shift for Family Dollar. He had prior like arrests before, but obviously he's working 2 jobs right now. He's that doesn't matter anymore. But he's in the South Bronx. The big protest is happening. He actually knew Ramani Graham, that boy that was murdered by cops. They ran to his house. He knew that kid. So he's totally connected into the story. So he's walking home from another job. The protests are happening. It's 7:58. The curfew is 8 o'clock, and he gets arrested for a violation of curfew. And because of parole violations, he ends up being in jail for a whole week. So this shows you all the problems all at the same time: the over-policing, recidivism, all that stuff, and economics. That the fact that he still has to work during a pandemic, So, but it also shows that people
it's like Angela Davis said. Prisons don't disappear problems, they disappear people. So imagine what that means for his family. He's away from his family. He's away from like how he supports his family. It's not just him. It's like the money he brings to his household. It's actually being in a cage, which is not where our people are supposed to ever be. And so, yeah, all of that, yes, all that resonated with me.
Yeah. So what are things that people should be looking out for, that should be supporting right now, and the type of stuff you're doing right now?
Yeah. So I do want to go back really quick to the 94 crime bill. What I was saying is that it actually like changed the way we talked about policing and the way we talked about crime. So the whole thing was around Hillary Clinton was running. It was like Hillary Clinton was running. You remember everybody bought back. You remember people bought back like the super predator idea. Like she called these kids super predators. That was actually the narrative. That was not just Hillary Clinton. If you go back and listen to Joe Biden's floor speech, it was about the segregation of like these bad people away from our people, and it was very coded and very racist language. And it also said that we are going to give people money to lock people up. So the way you deal with the problems is to like disappear people from your community, right? And so like that has had a domino effect on the way that like city budgets have worked. That's had a domino effect on the way that state and county budgets have worked. That's like truth in sentencing happened from the 94 crime bill. There's a thing called the COPS program that happened from the 94 crime bill, which is actually still continues to go through Congress today. 25
Is that an acronym? You said CRAPS. Is that an acronym? Can you explain that a little bit?
But it funds police in schools. I should know what the acronym is. I don't, but it funds police in schools. It's a COPS program. Yeah, and it still is
called CRAP?
a demand right now. COPS.
Yeah, because it is crap. That's why. It is some old bullshit.
But like, so this is the legacy of the bill. So we have folks like Ayanna Pressley, for example, who has said, who put out her justice guarantee, which is really like something to counter it. There's a coalition called the Coalition for People's Coalition for Safety and Freedom that is working on repealing the '94 crime bill and replacing it with a bill that is restorative, that is written by community through a process that people actually are able to give input on. We've seen that in smaller ways.
What is repeal the '94 crime bill again?
It will repeal the '94 crime bill or the harmful provisions where money, like the cops program, things that money is still given to, and then it will replace it with something that's written by the people to say what they really want. Because what happens is people in Congress will say Black people want this, and what they mean is the Black people I listen to want this. So, like, for example, Representative Jim Clyburn said today, I don't believe we should defund the police. So that is who has, like, the ear of Congress people, right? When you saw them, like, kneeling
wants to give the cops more money, probably.
Yeah, probably. But when you saw them kneeling in kente cloth, it's because the Black people around them said that you should do this. Nancy Pelosi didn't say, you know what I want to do? I want to kneel in some kente cloth. A Black person around her who she listens to told her to kneel in kente cloth.
They trolled the shit out of that woman.
Like holding the basketball.
They're like, yo, do this. They're in the background. Like, look at this dumb chick. Look at her. Yo, I gotta interject with something because there is a question I think that you can answer better than anybody else. Rossmann Group in the chat says the '94 crime bill is brought up as a boogeyman. What specifically was unfair about the bill, and how did it negatively affect people who should not have been negatively affected?
Well, I think I explained a lot of that. The COPS program is a tangible example, but it's also like more money and more funding for policing. Why are we giving funding for policing when we should be giving money to other things? And we're not talking about handouts. I hate that term. We're talking about the fact that, and I think that's like the problem with the fact that we don't teach history in this country. We're talking about police that started as slave patrols, right?
Oh yeah, we're talking about accurate history. They do teach a history. We're not sure exactly whose history. Maybe in some alternate dimension somewhere.
I think the cop history I've taught that Irish people and Italian people showed up and they got batons. That's the cop history.
No. The policing system in this country was born out of it was born out of the abolition of slavery, because again, we talked about this the other night. The 14th Amendment has a loophole in it that says we're going to get rid of slavery, but here's a way that you can bring it back legally. And then they set up organizations to be able to bring back slavery legally in the form of police departments. So that's how that got started. Way back then.
Free black men are convicts.
So the crazy thing is
slavery.
The origin of police in this country and the KKK are almost one and the same, because the KKK wasn't a thing until the abolition of slavery, and they started going on their rides because they felt like we lost control over them. We need to find a way to regain control. So we actually got two negative entities out of the abolition of slavery.
KKK. Who do you shoot down today?
I mean, it's the same thing, right? And then you look at how police interacted with folks during the civil rights movement. Like, these things didn't go away, right? These are the people. This is the legacy that is passed down to them. Police do not exist to protect us. They exist to protect property, and they happen to start when we were property. So
Supreme Court made that very fucking clear.
There's a way that we talk about policing that makes people feel like people deserve to be in jail. And my counter is that people do not deserve to be in jail. We need to find real solutions that are community-based, that meet people's needs, so that we do not have to have these systems of oppression. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. And so when we have things along the way, like Ayanna Pressley's Justice Guarantee, like listening to organizers on the street who are talking about defunding police. So you have, like I said, people in Oakland, where I live, my beloved new hometown, there is a defund OPD campaign asking for 50% of the police budget to go
across the country. 50%?
All over
Oakland 50%. Don't play.
Oakland does not play. And these are campaigns that are happening all over the country to defund policing into like, it's not just take police money and then nothing else. And it's not taking police money and then letting police become the folks who still provide services. We're saying, let's take it out of their budget and let the community decide how to keep itself safe, because that's who is the expert on safety. It's the community that lives there. And so the 94 crime bill is not a boogeyman. It's real. It happened. You can see where local localities got money. You can see where states passed truth in sentencing. These are real things. It's not something that we shouldn't talk about. And we can't just hold Republicans accountable for these things. We have to hold Democrats accountable for it, because Democrats passed it and Democrats have still not apologized for it.
Well, the thing is, I think what he's looking for is something that's more specific. It's like, okay, like we got the cops thing. Was it the community oriented policing, whatever. But what he's saying, I guess he's saying the answer to why the 94 crime bill is bad is because of more funding for policing. But that doesn't give me an idea of who is negatively effective and who wouldn't otherwise have been negatively affected. So I guess in a sense what he's saying is that
talked to a black person before.
But the thing is that I think that he understands that we're making the case that the 94 crime bill was aimed at black people, but what he's looking for is something tangible, something specific that shows that when they drafted those laws that were aimed at black people. Now us as black people, we know who the fuck it was aimed at. By the like you said before, by the language used in the bill, we know exactly who it was aimed at. However, it's important to give other people who want to understand our plight but cannot, what's the word I'm looking for? Relate to our experiences, because they don't have the same experiences, because the 94 crime bill was not written to target them. You know, in 1994, You're not going to write a bill saying, you're not going to write officially, we're going to lock up niggers. That's too obvious. It's too easy to see. It's not veiled enough. But for somebody who doesn't understand, can you give us specific situations where you can take that cops or craps or whatever that was, or you could take the truth in sentencing and then take that, break down what that is, explain what it is, and then show how it, probably kept people in prison much longer than they needed to be, if they needed to be there at all.
That's so interesting, and I'm trying to find a way, because I actually don't talk to white people, right? Like, to teach them things. If you're not taking me at my word,
necessary. But it's necessary.
It's
necessary.
And that's somebody else's ministry. That's somebody else's ministry. It's not mine.
Yeah, I don't think it's our job to explain to white people. If they don't get it, they need to read a book.
But the thing is, if they wait, I gotta stop you. I gotta stop you there. I gotta stop you. If we say it's not our responsibility to talk to the people who have the actual power to change things, we don't have the power to change a motherfucking thing.
No.
The white people are the people that have the influence. So if we don't talk to the people who have the influence. You said what?
This person in the comment section has the power to change it?
No. What I'm saying is if we start talking to people that think like them, because we make up 13% of the population. They make up something like 56%. So if we start talking to the people,
but Tracy already does that type of work. Tracy does that work out in the real world. When it comes to convincing someone in the comment section, is like
no. But the thing is, it's not about convincing, because the thing is, he's not looking to be convinced. But the thing is, he's not looking to be convinced. What he's saying is he doesn't understand the 94 crime bill, and he doesn't understand the effects of it.
People pulling strings in the internet,
No, understand. Because
I would tell him he should log on to Netflix and watch the 13th. That's what I would tell him.
The 13th? Actually, somebody put that on YouTube.
You can look at.
They put someone in the YouTube chat put the 13th. Right.
At that point, it's about educating yourself and resources.
Is to ask these questions for specifics, right? Like, do you have to know the specifics of every single thing to be able to understand people telling you this is their lived experience? Besides that they had that you had somebody in your family who was locked up in this timing of the 94 crime bill. So that's an example. And I just feel
I think he was looking
about white people.
But the thing is, I think he was looking for a direct correlation, like when you say truth in sentencing, because personally, like in 1994, I was 10 to 11 years old. So that is not something that I may have felt the effects of it, but even someone like myself would not necessarily understand different parts of the bill. So when you say truth in sentencing, I kind of sort of get an idea of what that is, because that sounds like some sort of mandatory minimum type of thing. But for other people who, because the person who's in the comments asking these questions, he's even younger than I am. So, you know, he was probably a toddler at the time that this stuff was put out there. So when he's asking for, when he talks about truth in sentencing, exactly what is that? And then, because if you just explain what truth in sentencing is, he'll probably understand more. Okay, this is how they could use that to fuck with poor people and to fuck with minorities.
Well, I mean, like in general, truth in sentencing is saying that like judges don't have similar to mandatory minimums, where judges could like take in your life experiences and all of the reasons that like you might have done something and like give you a lower sentence or whatever. Like they can't do that. It takes away that discretion. And so we elect judges, and hopefully they will have that discretion. I mean, well, that's what people think, and then that's taken away. Then folks get to prison and say they have a good behavior, if they've done like everything that they've been asked to do. They can't get out early. Like we won't give people incentives to get out early because you're saying that there's a truth in the sentence that the judge gave you. So that is like a thing that was like given as part of the 94 crime bill, and states like for my home state of Wisconsin actually passed it as a result of the 94 crime bill. So things like
three
that
strikes also in that too?
Three strikes
also in that too?
Sorry, they're putting out fireworks.
So for those that don't know what the 3 strikes thing is that they can take lower level felonies, add up 3 of them, and then put you in prison for life.
Like the 3 strikes rule, what scared me, that's the thing that kind of scared me not to do stuff when I heard that, like people like laundering or like stealing candy, going to jail for life in California. I mean, like that kind of stuff. Oh, I'm going to studies now, you know. But like it punished so many people. It was so just devastating, you know.
Yeah, and I think that like
you just educated me today.
Yeah.
I would just say, like, take people at their word. And, like, these stories are the expertise. There are folks who, like, lived under these, like, really horrible things who can't tell you about police budgets or who can't tell you about, like, really specific legislation, but they can tell you what it means to get pulled over by police.
Brandon can.
They can tell you what it means. Yeah. I mean, I was part of an action. It was on the 25th anniversary of the 94 crime bill last year. And so it was about 70 of us. So we did a teach-in in the Hart Atrium of the Senate building about what the 94 crime bill was. We talked about it. We talked about the ways that policing and prisons have impacted our lives. And then we went to go talk to people and ask them, like Democrats specifically who voted for the bill, to ask them to apologize for it, to commit to apologizing for it, and to repeal it. We actually didn't get a chance to talk to anybody, and nobody has apologized since then, but we did ask. So, I mean, Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi all voted for this. Bernie Sanders voted for this bill. So this is like, criminalizing Black people has always been bipartisan, and there's always been an excuse to do it. And so I think that that's why it's really important to like look at like the lineage of how these things come about.
Yeah, this is definitely the time to look at the 94 crime bill and all the different pieces that it caused afterwards. You know, so perfect. I mean, what can people do who are watching right now to support you and your work as we go towards the election season right now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say support Movement for Black Lives. They especially have the Electoral Justice Project that's part of the Movement for Black Lives, understanding that voting is not the only tool, but it is a tool that we should like engage in. So I would support them. I would support like local organizing on the street. BLM Louisville, which is a big part of getting no-knock warrants knocked out, and that's the way Breonna Taylor was murdered by the Louisville police.
Yeah.
So like on the ground organizing works, and we have to not only organize.
My grandmother experienced a no-knock raid.
Oh my God!
My grandmother, yeah. You know what she had? You know what she runs in her house? Guess. a daycare center.
What?
But luckily, it was a couple of hours before there were infants and children before big giant men with M16s came in the house. But I just Breonna Taylor actually almost died the same way my grandparents could have died. You know, just sleeping, being shocked by men in your house with guns. You know, it's really great to hear.
And let's
that,
not forget the woman
young,
who's playing video games with her nephew and left her door open, and then she gets shot from outside the fucking house.
Wellness check. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's overwhelming to continue to think about. And so, you know, everybody, like what we have seen, especially around this uprising that we're seeing now, is that folks are coming out all over the country. It's really beautiful to see that, like, not only did it happen in Minneapolis, but it's been happening in 50 states. So no matter where you are, there's some local organizing that you can support. And so giving, you know, $100 to a local organization or local organizers is actually so impactful, as opposed to, like, you know, a lot of times we're like, oh, the ACLU needs money. And I'm not saying don't give to the ACLU, but I'm kind of saying don't give to the ACLU. I'm saying give to, like, if you have, like, I mean, not ACLU, but in general, like larger organizations, like, you know, your $100, if that's what you can give, like, makes such an impact on the ground. And it's the difference between being able to, like, feed someone during an action and, like, get some masks and some hand sanitizer versus, like, a drop in the bucket at, like, a larger org. So
right, because I hear that, like, up to 97% of every dollar doesn't actually go to the cause; it goes to administrative, whatever that's supposed to mean.
I don't know what that means.
To where? What group?
They call it admin. When you talk about the larger, because this is, you know, several years ago, the jig was basically up on a lot of these so-called charitable organizations where they actually have like a spreadsheet of every organization that claims that they help out this or that cause, and then they actually look at the ratios of dollars that are given to them versus dollars that actually reach the people that the organization claims that it's supposed to reach. So we have to mention the Trump Foundation and how they got kind of caught out there, because where was that money going, right? So when you're talking about these larger organizations, I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Ivanka. He was going to Ivanka.
Going to Ivanka and going to vodka.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy, for coming on our show tonight. I really appreciate it so much. And
very happy to meet you.
Just talking to you, talking to you gives me hope that even if Biden gets in office, we have a chance to make change, real change. Thank you.
Especially if he gets in office, we have a chance to make change. I've been saying another world is not only possible. Another world is not only possible, it's in progress. And so we're doing it. The work is happening. And just, like, find it and plug into it.
Got you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So how do you feel about this? We got Defund the Police. You know, like, I want the police to just disappear and, like, you know, never come back. But most people I know want like, they want someone you can call if someone kicks in your house right now and wants to kill you. You know, at least you can call somebody for that. You know, me personally, you know, hopefully I can fight that person. But if, like I said before, if someone kicks in my house, I'd rather have Scooby-Doo Mystery show up, because in every episode they solve the crime. I bet, watch every episode of Scooby-Doo, they solve the mystery. So if I get killed and Scooby-Doo shows up,
but the dude
the mystery can get solved.
No, but when they pulled the hood off the dude, it's not a dude that, like, shot up the block. Like, he was, like, doing, like, weird, fucking unshady, you know. I started scaring people, you know. And,
no, but, like, Law and Order, you watch Law and Order, they be mad episodes when they don't solve the crime. You'd be like, well, that rapist is back out in the streets. You know, if Scooby-Doo finds that rapist is getting locked up. You know, like, that's all I'm saying. The cops,
but Scooby-Doo wasn't pulled from the headlines. You know what I mean? Like, can you?
How you know? Shaggy be a composite of different private investigators. You know.
I mean, because if it was ripped from the headlines, they would have slammed Shaggy face down on the pavement for smoking weed, because you know he was high as fuck, son. Come on, son.
They're looking for snacks. No, but
yeah, like yeah, the Scooby snacks were like weed brownies. Come on, son, you know what that was.
But that helped. That kept them calm. They ran away. They solved crimes like by accident a lot of times. Cops can't even solve crimes on purpose. So
man, they solved the same crimes I was solving when I was in the second grade. Shit. But you asked me my opinion of like the policing. I think that it's a multi-pronged thing. Like, so if you say that you want to get rid of police altogether, well, look at the situation that we're coming from. I believe that the cat's out of the bag on that, because from a psychological point of view, people have lived under a system for generations that says, well, these are the people that we have to be accountable to if we step out of line from a societal sense. So what happens is, and the thing is, this is where I kind of get where some of the conservative voices are coming from. If you just remove the police from the streets, just again, put them all on Elon Musk's spaceship and send them to Mars, as you've been saying, if we did that, what would actually happen? Well, some people would say, well, it's time for the purge. You know what I mean? Like, and the purge fucking sirens would go on, but it won't be for 12 hours. It will be like for the rest of all of our lives. Like, some people are just going to like go fucking crazy. And, like you said that the 3 strikes rule was the deterrent for you doing shit that you weren't supposed to do. So from a psychological standpoint, you've already kind of gotten used to a certain standard that comes with certain kinds of consequences. If you take that away, it's going to send the wrong message. Well, now I can do this, now I can do that. And that's going to cause a lot of problems. So I'll give you an example, right? I realized after I became a driver that I actually do like to drive 90 miles per hour. But if you take away all the speed cameras and all the cops, I can't guarantee you I'm not going to do 90 on the Manhattan Bridge. I'm just saying. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. So, I'm not a violent person. Imagine a violent person thinking, well, if the cops are not going to get called, then I'm going to go fuck shit up. So I feel like the cat is already out of the bag. We don't have an alternative from a psychological standpoint to replace the police as the standard bearers.
Oh, so you mean just like,
but there's
it's
another
real
thing.
Radical, like tomorrow there's no cops. That's what you
right,
mean.
right. If you go crazy,
society
right?
as it is,
right?
No cops.
But then also you have a problem.
What about
where
all
we
these people with guns?
But I was about to go there. I was about to fucking go there.
Yeah.
We live in a city that does not honor our Second Amendment rights. So we're being told that if somebody accosts us on the street, we have to call the police. By then, my body is an Afghan. I've got mad holes in me. My life force is already draining away by the time the fucking cops come. It's too late for them to help me if I got a fucking gun in my face, right? So, if we are going to talk about getting rid of police on any level, then we have to then look at other laws to allow people to be able to defend themselves. In the case where people really do think it's the motherfucking purge, it's like, nah, I got your motherfucking purge right here. We're not playing those fucking games. So I think that we're going to have to, we need to meet somewhere in the middle. We can't have the Wild West because that didn't work, right? We can't have the OK Corral you were talking about earlier, right? We need to keep Golden Corral. We can't go back to the OK Corral, all right? And we need to make sure that we need standards for the police officers, but we also need different hiring practices where we're not just the hiring practices, but also when they go to the academy. When they go to the academy, they're being indoctrinated to believe that it's us versus them, like they just entered a fucking war zone. No, you are amongst your neighbors.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I feel, as soon as you said it, that's why I feel we need to break down this institutions, break it all down, and then build up whatever new thing that supports our communities. I don't mean like necessarily just like disappear everything. I mean, if I was running things, I would. That's why Mao and all those Stalin people fuck shit up, because they just do drastic, crazy shit. But but gradual, like liberal kind of like policies to eliminate all this toxic kind of environment within the police department that thrives for decades, for centuries, to clean it all up so we can have jobs, walk in our streets in peace, and be in our homes in peace. Because right now it's about everything. Being at home, you can die. Walking outside, you can die. These are all the risks you have just being black and being in a community that's over policed, you know. So
Right.
that's why I feel, you know.
But I think that it's important to note that a lot of what we're talking about when you say you could be in your house and die, or you could be playing, you know, video games with your nephew and have the police shoot through your window. You could have the police show up at the wrong door and then kill you while you're sleeping.
At the wrong
you can
door,
have the police,
yes.
right?
Your wrong
You can
fucking
have
house.
the police called for what could have been a fake 20
Like
or a
Kenneth
fake $10
Chamberlain?
bill, you know, and then
Kenneth
they're
Chamberlain?
kneeling on your neck, right? Yeah, that, you know, those kinds of situations.
They call. They
what
were
people
supposed to
don't
help him. He
understand.
was supposed to be sick. Yeah.
Right. So the reason why that we have to address these situations the way we do is not because these things happen, because police officers are imperfect human beings the same way that us civilians are. And I'm one of these people that I am very much more than willing to understand that police make mistakes. But here's where the problem is. The problem is when there is no accountability for the fuck up. When you have police officers settling personal vendettas on civilians, when you have police trying to get rid of whatever psychological issues that they had, being bullied in school, and now they've got
Eating
this
people.
badge and gun.
Remember that cannibal cop was planning to eat people? Remember that
Yeah.
NYPD cop was
Yeah.
planning to eat people?
Yeah, but I think
I mean,
that was different because he was like doing some sort.
On
He
the
claimed he
internet
was doing some
surfing for
kind of
feet.
role play, role play. We don't know if he really was all about that life because people have
cops lie
fantasies,
all the
right?
time. I don't know.
But people
Yeah,
have fantasies, so I'm willing to concede that it's possible that he wasn't going to actually chop up and eat the woman that he was getting information from a police database that he had no authorization to access.
And part of
he
defund
committed
the
some
police
crimes
is to keep
there.
cops from having access to that shit. That's the thing people don't
Yeah,
realize. Part of defund the police is think policies like that. Like cops can go in the database, like and find you. Had nothing to do with any case. They can find your database and find you. Like cops have all these privileges that it shouldn't be allowed. You know, that's so true. But we need a. I feel this is dope. This is a dope first episode. And I want to go back to like sports stuff about COVID-19, about this to be positive, this to end positive. So in South Korea,
release a little bit of the tension, right?
Yeah. So South Korea right now.
I do want to address somebody in the Twitch chat real quick. He says more whites are killed by blacks than the other way around. That's actually not true.
I'm not.
What I'm saying, no. But the thing is, I'm going to address it. I'm going to address it to make sure that the record is set straight. I know. But listen, I need people to understand.
I made a video about this. I have the stats.
Yes, but this is episode 0, right? So I'm gonna put this shit stuff. But I'm gonna put this shit to bed my way, right? This is how it's gonna go down. Okay. The FBI keeps statistics. Yeah, the FBI keeps statistics on murders in the United States. Okay,
for decades.
87% of white people are killed by other white people. 91% of black people are killed by other black people. So that's not a racial issue. The thing is that human beings who are violent minded, they kill the people they live around. So even though segregation was made illegal over 50 years ago, chances are the people you live around have the same skin tone as you. Mexicans live around Mexicans.
If an alien was
Asians live around
right
Asians.
Now,
black lives around blacks.
Right now,
white lives around white. So guess what? The vast majority of white people that are being murdered are being killed by other white people. In fact, wasn't it you that told me, Messiah, that 71% of all active duty police officer deaths, like in the line of duty, are at the hands of white men?
Yeah, they the one they shoot back because they have the guns.
So the police are scared of the black man in the traffic stop, but it's the white guys that are killing.
Because the thing is, white people have more guns. That's also a stat. White people have more guns. They have like 4 or 5 times more.
It's
guns
easier for them to get gun licenses.
It should be more. You should be more scared of a white person because they may be more armed than a black person. But racism doesn't fit for people. Don't think logically like that, So
when you look at Philando Castile, I got to go back to Philando Castile he very calmly informed the officer that he was armed and legally armed. So when asked for his ID, he goes to his ID, and not only does the cop shoot him, because the thing that I found most egregious is that his stepdaughter was sitting in the car behind, in the rear behind the passenger seat.
That was that horrible Facebook Live video, right?
Yes.
It was horrible. It was
Yes.
like live.
So
Yeah, that was terrible.
if you look, so my thing is, I had a problem with what the officer did. The thing that I had the most problem with is that the officer shot in the direction of a 4-year-old girl. So if you're a police officer that is paying attention and doing your job properly, you're going to take an assessment of the entire situation. You're not going to try to disarm somebody, even if you think that he's reaching for a gun. You don't try to disarm him in the moment when you see a 4-year-old girl sitting in the back seat. At that point, you take cover behind your police cruiser. You call for backup. If you really think that something bad is going to happen to you, but of course, his partner didn't see anything. He was like, I didn't see anything that lead me to believe that he needed to even draw his weapon, much less fire it 4 times.
Like Evil Genius, like I actually went to the gun range like a couple of weeks before the pandemic started. I went to the gun range, and there was a cop there who was gunslinging at the booth. Like he lifted it up and was gunslinging. I'm like, why does he need to know how to gunsling? What's happening? You know, it's just like that mentality they have of like always being ready to murder someone and like at a moment's notice. Practicing gunslinging means you're not talking. You're just gonna shoot this motherfucker. When you just get out the holster,
John Wayne.
That's not like, hey, what's going on, buddy? That's just shooting you dead. And he was there training to do that. So people need to realize that, you know. So
yes, I just wanted to put that to bed. Because I've got the motherfucking time for anybody with a deflection argument. I'm here for your whataboutisms. Now,
Black Power Magic Hour.
Messiah is not going to entertain you, but I'm not
entertain
running.
certain trolls. Certain trolling I entertain.
Right. But my thing is that when we go directly at the bullshit, when we go at the bullshit, when people come back and then they watch this video, because after we've already had 300 episodes, people are going to wonder what our start was like. Tonight is the start of something that I believe is going to be really, really great, right?
Yeah, that was a heavy.
I want people to know I'm here for the bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm here for the bullshit. I'm here for you. So if you want to talk about the murder rate in Chicago, we can fucking go there. We can go there. All right? But you're not gonna win because the facts are not on your side.
They're never.
All right. Like you were talking. So let's move into the sports, because I think that we were gonna be moving into the sports stuff.
No. This is the grand finale. This is a wrap for the show. Pretty much, we're gonna end on this segment. This to show some positivity to show that.
Yeah. But you wanted to get into like how COVID affects these things.
Yeah. No, not this. No, let's just watch people kick balls.
파이팅이죠.
윤빛가람. 윤빛가람. 발톱을 숨기고 있다가 찬스가 오니까 어김없이 드러내네요.
네. 자, 좋아요. 왼발 한번 제치고 양동현인데요. 들어갑니다. 양동현 선수 오늘 벌써 2번째 골입니다. 했습니다. 김승대가 달립니다. 김승대 쪽으로 일단은 펜스가 정확하게 연결. 좋은 트래핑 중앙으로 잡고. 자, 김승대 쪽으로 완벽하게 연결이 됐죠. 그리고 중앙으로 밀어주는데요. 자, 빙글 돌면서 자, 이런 슈팅이 다닌데요. 자, 잡기 헤더. 자, 그리고 역습이죠. 문선민인데요. 문선민인데요. 찬스예요. 문선민 찬스입니다. 이범수. 문선민 슛을 기록합니다. 2대0을
왼쪽에 스위프트가 있고요. 슛! 골! 골을 따냅니다. 너무 좋아요. 네. 원더골입니다.
그리고 다시 한번 한승규 뒤쪽으로 짧게 그리고 먼 거리 슈팅! 드디어 터졌습니다. 안찬이 1대5로 다시 터졌습니다.
좋아요. 브릴로 좋아요.
브릴로 밀고 들어갑니다.
열렸어요. 브릴로.
전국 현장 1대0. 정승원의 커트, 에드가 빠르게 중앙으로 밀고 들어갑니다. 정승원 돌려놓습니다. 연결됐고요. 그리고 낮게 깔아줍니다. 그리고 세대가 골!